I'm pretty happy with that sidewalk. Since I've got some gray mixed up here on my palette, I'm going to move over to this area, the garage floor, and see what we can do with this spot here. I've already done a little sanding on that, so now we're just going to put a couple of coats of paint, see if we can make that look a little better. I'm off to a good start on that spot, but I'm going to mix up a little bit more gray paint, and I want to remind you how I do that. Since that gray color I was using, which is right here on the palette, was a pretty good match, I'm going to mix my new paint right there on that same spot. I need a little more paint, and I'm going to just try to match that there that's on the palette. That way I don't have to worry about going back to my piece. That color was a little bit light or a little bit dark, so I'm going to make this one just a little bit lighter. And here's my little dab of brown, and I touched on my brown, and then I tap somewhere else, and then I put it in here to just give a little bit of touch of brown, just to make that slightly taupe. I think that's a pretty good match. Let me look. It is. I'm going to paint it up, and then I'll show you. That's coming along pretty well. I've done this gray area. It was a little dark, so I lightened it up, and then I made it even a little lighter and kind of stippled over the top of it with even a little bit lighter so that it's just not one solid big blob of color, but it kind of blends into the rest of the floor because the rest of the floor is kind of light and dark also. Now I've gone and added just a few little light brown polka dots so it matches a little bit the pattern like the rest of the floor. I am going to call that patio area done and good, and the sidewalk. Also, I'm good back here with this little part of the garage, back down here in the corner. But we've got some yellow along here. I don't know how much of that will show when it's together, but I'm not going to take a chance. I'm going to redo this yellow line, this line here, which is kind of, it's supposed to be a little bit of like sand or dirt up next to the house. I'll do that, and then we'll do the green. Let me get some yellow. I've got yellow on my palette, so that should just take a minute to mix up and get it done. I'm pretty happy with that. There were a few little spots along here I touched up, and I've touched up this spot down here where that brown needed to be fixed up, and then that yellow has also been touched up. I think this is done except a little bit of work on the green, and then I probably do the sidewalk, touch it up a little bit too, although that should be covered by those steps that are on the front of the house. There's some scratches out here. These will be covered, so I'm not concerned about that. There's another floor that fits over that section. We are really close to being done with this piece. Next, we're going to work on the grass, and this is what I'm talking about. See right here, there's like quite a brown spot, and then here along the edge, it's just a little bit brownish, and around the corner, it's worn. So we're just going to touch a little paint on all of those areas. Now, I know from experience, because I've done 2 houses like this before. I've got like a grass green bottle of paint, which I'll start with, but then I'm going to add some little drops of brown and a little bit of black and maybe even a little bit of yellow, because you want this not a flat green, but you want it to be a blend of dark green and light green like the existing pattern that's already on there. So let's get it done. I've got my dark green mixed up. I'm just going to go ahead and start with a base coat of it, and then I'll come back and add a little highlights and some lowlights so it just doesn't look like a solid chunk of green. I'll make it blend in with the rest of the grass. I put some masking tape along here to protect that white edge that I've already painted because I want to get some green right down there in that little crevice. Let's take this tape off and see how it looks. I'm very happy with that. Now, after I did my coat of kind of that dark green, I went back over it and I put kind of a coat here and there of a little bit lighter green. And then after I did that, and here's a tip I've not shared with you before, I took a square blunt brush. This one I've been tapping with it, so it's kind of smushed out. And I put a little yellow on it, and I almost dry brushed these little bits of grass on here. But when you do that, instead of just coming along dot, 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 as you do that, turn your brush. See how my fingers are turning that brush? So that every time you dot, you've got a different angle on your brush. And that helps to give that random look on those little pieces of grass. I also do that like if I'm like doing polka dots or anything that you want to do random, just kind of spin your brush around. Here, I'll show you from another angle. See how I rotate? So as you dot, 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 rotate your brush back and forth as you go along so that they're not all the same direction. It'll look random like grass. I dabbed a little gray right here where the steps are going to go, and with that, I believe this piece is done. Let's get the next one out and see what it needs. This is the living room floor, and it's not in bad shape, although right here there's a little rough spot where the steps are going to be. So I'll fix that, and then there's just a little bit of green paint missing around here. You know how easy that is to touch up, so we'll get that touched up too. Then this piece is going to be ready to go too. That looks like another piece touched up and done. I think we're almost done. Let's look at the next one. Now that I look at it again, the roof might need just a little more touch-ups in some of the pieces. It's got several places where it's a little rusty, particularly here on this edge. I believe this would be like the front of the house, which is the side where the front door is, which honestly I don't normally show that side, but still I'm going to want that to look as good as I can. So I'm going to mix up a little off-white paint, light gray. I might do that. A little bit of sanding. It's a little rough right there, and get this roof looking just a little bit better. Here along the peak, I'll run a little line of white or light gray. Let's see if we can make it look a little better. I've done a coat on almost everything here. There's a couple of little spots I've missed, so I'm going to go back and get those. And a few of them, like along this roof line, I'm going to put another coat of paint. And then I put paint along this edge where it was pretty chipped and dark and a little bit corroded. But I didn't lift it up and I didn't get under here. So I'm going to do that. Now because this is an edge that might get touched a lot, I'll probably go ahead and put a coat of Mod Podge on that too. This piece is getting close to done. So then I got the other piece of roof out. This house has 2 chunks of roof. It's in a lot better shape. I am going to run a line of paint right down this crease, and anything else that needs touched up, I'll do that too. I did notice on this piece that here along the very edge, I was going to touch up a little bit, but that's really a gray. So I had to get some gray mixed up to put along that very far edge. Then out here in the middle, I just use the white or the Dollhouse white. Now here's a tip I don't think I've shared with you. When I do something like this and it needs paint along here, I will attempt to not put paint on those little gray lines. I won't cover those up. I'll try to get the paint between those gray lines. That saves me from having to go back. I don't lose that detail, and it saves me from having to go back and try to put that detail in, if I want it. Sometimes, I don't care if a little bit of it's gone. But if I can leave it, I will, and that's what I've done along there. This is the second piece of the roof, and what I found I liked when I did the first one was I just painted along this line, which is a little dark, and there's some paint gone, and it looks a little bit, not real clean. I ran my paint along there, and then I went back and ran my finger over it just to help blend it in so it doesn't look quite so much like just a line of paint. And I thought that looked really, really good. So that's what I'm going to do on this, and let's see if there's any other little spots that need touched up. This section of roof is done also, and I am very, very pleased with it. We're going to do this piece next. Now this piece has just a little bit of spots I might touch up here and here. Here along the windows, the top of those windows sometimes looks a little grubby. I'm going to touch up a little white paint on there. There's a little spot there. And then down here, a little bit of this green needs to be fixed up. And then I'll probably sand a little bit and then wipe it off up here at the top of the windows. Now this is that piece that's going to have to be like unfolded, and I'm going to do that after I paint it. I think it'll be easier to paint the outside with it flat. This side, I don't know that this needs anything. Maybe a little dollhouse white here, and then here at the edge maybe just a little bit of that teal.